Hello and welcome to the Offaly Down Syndrome Diaries, a podcast where we share stories, experiences and insights from the Down syndrome community here in County Offaly. I'm your host Robbie Dunley, and in each episode we'll be shining a light on the lives, challenges and triumphs of individuals with Down syndrome, as well as the families, friends and professionals who support them. Whether you're a parent, educator, advocate, or just curious to learn more, this podcast is for you. Our goal is to create a space for open conversations that inspire, inform, and connect us all. From personal stories to expert advice, we'll dive into topics that matter most to the Down syndrome community. So, grab a cup of tea, get comfortable, and let's start this journey together. Let me introduce you to our current chairperson and our first ever interviewee, Anne Crombie.
This is the Offaly Down Syndrome Diaries with Robbie Dunley.
Hello, my name is Anne and my daughter Chloe has Down syndrome. She is 8 years old.
Tell me about Chloe.
Well, Chloe is a typical 8-year-old. She loves playing with her sisters and her cousins and her friends in school. She is the rogue of the family. She's an absolute trickster. She loves playing pranks on everybody. She loves getting quiet time where she can do a little bit of harm and thinks it's very, very funny. Just your typical 8-year-old, really.
How did you initially react when you learned of Chloe's diagnosis?
I got a postnatal diagnosis in the hospital after delivering Chloe. Chloe was delivered by C-section, and they noticed in the recovery room that Chloe had an extra line down her palm for hand. They didn't say anything to me at the time because it was obviously just the midwives and nurses there. So they needed to get the actual paediatric consultant to have a look and confirm and then have a chat to me. So I was oblivious in the recovery room. They kept me there for about an hour, and my husband James wasn't allowed in. He was outside, so he was actually getting a little bit concerned, thinking something had happened. When they brought me onto the ward, because she was a planned C-section, I had actually already set up my bed, my bed on the ward, if that makes sense, but my belongings. But they had actually moved everything into a single bedroom, into a private room as such. But I was still completely oblivious. I had no idea what was wrong. They told me that they had quite a large amount of people deliveries while I was in recovery and in theatre, so that's why my bed was given up, so I had a bed of my own. But in hindsight, it was really to give us the space and time that we needed for when they did tell us that Chloe had Down syndrome. So it was honestly about 2-3 hours after her birth before the paediatric consultant could come up to us, because she was dealing with an emergency in A&E, and I still had no idea when she came in. She came in with an entourage of students, doctors, and they said, we just want to examine Chloe. So she had a quick check of her in the room, and then she asked could she take her outside the room. Still oblivious, no idea what was going on, thought this was all fine. And then when she came in, she just said, look, upon physical examination of your daughter, we believe that she may have Down syndrome. I can still see it. I still remember sitting in the bed and barely able to move, and looking over at James, who at this stage now is actually like standing to attention, like nearly kind of going, are you sure though? You know, and they were like, well, we're not 100% sure, and we won't really know until we do the blood tests to find out. So we were like, okay, but why do you think that? And they were saying that she's floppy, which I hadn't even noticed after holding her for 2 hours. They said about the single palm crease going down her hand was an indication, and also her toes. And then, and her eyes, obviously. But honestly, I had stared at that child for nearly 3 hours. And I was still looking at her going, I don't see it. I actually don't see the characteristics that she's talking about. But looking back on baby photos, it's really obvious. It's just, you know, you're in a haze, you're just after having a new baby and you're so excited and that. It didn't really hit me, I don't think. I didn't really know what Down syndrome meant. So I didn't actually know what that meant for Chloe. I was only ever worried about Chloe. I just wanted to make sure she was okay. You know, so they had checked her heart and they said, she'll have to be sent to Crombie to get her heart test, to get her heart checked, because there is a high percentage of children who are born with Down syndrome do have heart conditions and may require surgery. So that was a huge concern. Her swallow wasn't great. It was very, very slow. That was a huge concern about weight and all the rest of it. And then her breathing was fine. Her heart seemed fine, but they still had to go and send her up. And they were happy with her bowels at the moment. These are all the things that they check, apparently. These are all the things that could have an implication or health implications down the line. So although she seemed okay there and then, a few hours after birth, this will all have to be checked down the line. Her hearing, her sight, all that. So this is all going through my head. And then they left the room. And James and I had a moment to ourselves. And sure, he went on, started Googling everything about Down syndrome, like a world that we'd never even know anybody who had Down syndrome. Never really met anybody with Down syndrome, so we didn't really know what it meant or how it was going to impact us. And he went and he Googled it, and honest to God, we were terrified. Like the stories, the health implications, it was terrifying. And every day he would come back into the hospital and be like, oh my God, did you know? We'll have to keep an eye out for, she could have severe hearing loss, which will impact her speech, which, everything, balance, all this. And I remember just saying, I think on the second day, like, just stop. I don't want to hear any more about what could be, what might be. We don't know. Like, we don't know. We can only do what Chloe has to face and deal with. So there's no point bombarding our minds with everything that could happen, that might never happen. And we were very fortunate that Chloe's heart was fine, her breathing was fine, her bowels are fine, everything, her hearing, it didn't come up clear on the first test, but then we had to go back in and it came up clear, thank God. She does have quite poor eyesight, but then that's in our family as well. Now, obviously, Chloe's is a heightened level of it, but otherwise she's actually fine. And when I look back, I just wish we didn't do any of that stuff. And we could have just embraced those few, the first few days when you're in that lovely haze of newborn baby and everybody's happy and joyful and bringing them to, introducing her to her sisters. Even all of that, we were just like, oh, should we be telling them now to be more gentle with her? But really, no, she was just a baby.
Did you find the experience from the doctors and nurses when they told you positive or?
A mixture. So the paediatric consultant was actually very positive. She just literally confirmed it and said we'd have to do a blood test to make sure, but not to worry, and that they were going to monitor her. And she told me I wouldn't be under her care. I'll be under another paediatric consultant's care. And that consultant actually came up to me on her day off to introduce herself to me. Told me she was looking forward to meeting me and all the rest of it. So that was lovely. The midwives did put the fear of God into me. Only because, I don't know, I actually felt like I was nearly being watched all the time. Like they were waiting for me to have this mental breakdown or this flood of emotions or some, I don't know what, but I really felt like that. And there was one nurse in particular that would come in and she would try to nearly probe it out of me, the emotions. I suppose I was very calm. James wasn't. He was, but then he was going home every night and he was dealing with family and friends and all the rest of it. I was still in the bubble in the hospital, if that makes sense. So he would come in but then I would calm him down. And then the nurses kind of felt like, well, I need to look after my emotions. Don't be worried about his emotions, but we were in it together. But I remember when the paediatric consultant left the room and all the other doctors left the room, we were going to ring and tell our families and friends what the story was. And the midwife who was there at the time told us, oh no, I wouldn't do that. I'd wait until you find out. Wait until you get your blood results, which took 2 weeks. So she basically told us to hold off on telling the external people other than your immediate family for 2 weeks. So we bottled that up for 2 weeks. I felt like we were, I don't know, we couldn't tell anybody. She said we weren't, and we took that for gospel, don't tell anybody. So I didn't tell work, I didn't tell my friends, I didn't tell anybody. And then when we did get the blood results back, I couldn't tell anybody because we had hidden it for 2 weeks or more, because it took me a long time actually to ring and tell my friends.
You're listening to the Offaly Down Syndrome Diaries.
What have been some of the biggest challenges you've faced of having a child with Down syndrome?
The biggest challenges for us is sourcing therapies. It's nothing got to do with Chloe. She's We treat her as one of the girls, one of her sisters. She's one of the cousins. She's just our typical child from that perspective in terms of, raising her and all the rest of it. But in terms of getting therapies for her, it has been an absolute nightmare. We were really lucky in the early days where she received physiotherapy through Riverside and Tullamore, and that was amazing. The physiotherapist used to come out to our house and she used to do simple exercises using things around the house. So everything was very, very easy for you to do at home on your own, which really stood to Chloe because her walk, her balance, everything is as it should be, as an 8-year-old should be. But where they fell down was SLT, which is speech and language therapy. And it's something that all people with Down syndrome, young and old, will require right up until adulthood. They would need speech and language therapy because it affects everything. You don't realise it, but it does. Without having the ability to speak, they're not able to communicate their needs. Okay, as a family member, you'll understand them. You'll be able to work out what they're trying to tell you, what they're trying to say, because you know them inside and out. So you can figure it out. You can piece it together. But it's when they leave the home and they go to school, no one else understands them. And it's very, very hard for them to make friends. It's very hard for them to adjust to new environments. It's very hard for them to warn people of danger, if they feel that they're after getting hurt, somebody has said something to them, they can't express themselves. And finding a speech and language therapist in Offaly has been an absolute nightmare. I was going private, then that person has since left her private practice. We were receiving therapy through Offaly Down Syndrome, which was amazing, but then that speech therapist left the practice. So trying to find a good speech and language therapist has been an absolute nightmare. And I know fundamentally that if people with Down syndrome receive it from birth, their speech can be phenomenal. Chloe had her first SLT session Wednesday in 5 years through Riverside. And my eyes were opened to the different ways of communication. It's not just through speech. So she was showing me you can do it through PECS, which is an imagery system, because Chloe's a very visual person. So if she doesn't have the words, she can point to the picture, but she's still communicating her needs. There's also a tablet that she had, and we were only there for an hour, but it was really only a 40-minute session. And by the end of that 40 minutes, Chloe strung together the sentence, "I want more bubbles. I want to blow more bubbles." And then she handed the bubbles over to the speech therapist, and the speech therapist, "What do you want me to do?" And she goes, "I want you blow bubbles." And this was on a tablet, which she had to press the words, which also had the picture, but then it spoke what she had, it repeated what she had pressed. So she tapped blow bubbles and it said blow bubbles. And then the lady said, "Well, what do you want to do?" She goes, "I want to pop the bubbles." And it was phenomenal. She was actually able to express how she wanted to play the game. Something she's never been able to do. She can say bubbles, that's it. She can't say blow bubbles, she can't say pop bubbles, she can't string sentences together. But all of a sudden, after 40 minutes, she was able to express exactly how she wanted to play the game. My God, this is amazing.
Can you tell me about some of the misconceptions or stereotypes that you've encountered regarding Down syndrome and how you've addressed them?
Yes. Every child with Down syndrome is very happy. Oh, they're so bubbly, they're so happy, they have no other emotion. They're only happy. I can tell you now that's a complete and utter misconception. My child has every emotion under the rainbow, like every other child. She will let you know when she is hurt. She does not have this massive pain threshold that people seem to think that they have. They don't have a pain. She doesn't anyway. If she scratches her knee, she falls down and she cries. She scratched her knee. Even though it's only a tiny little bump, didn't even graze the skin, she will cry and she will let you know that she is hurt. And she's not happy all the time. Actually, just to prove that point, Offaly Down Syndrome did a photo exhibition called 321 a couple of years ago, and where we did a portrait of all our members at the time, just to capture a moment in time, capture their personality. And the picture that the photographer, my husband, chose was of Chloe with a big sulky face in her. She had a real sulky pout, but that's actually her most of the time. And it's not that she's sad all of the time, but she's not this happy 99% of the time. She's actually just a normal little girl. And the other thing, and this actually really annoys me as well, is where people treat her like a baby. She's not a baby. She's 8.5 now. She understands right from wrong. I did a course back when I was on maternity leave with the Down Syndrome Education Centre, and it was from 0 to 5 years. And they made it very, very clear that on a social scale, people with Down syndrome are on par with their peers. So socially, she understands what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. So pulling people's hair, unacceptable. And don't say, oh, well, she doesn't understand. She does. She understands that's wrong and she knows what she's doing, and you need to correct her in that way. Obviously, on an educational scale, she'd be way behind her peers, and different things like communication and that. But she's not this forever baby. She's this forever child concept that people have. She's definitely not. She understands. She watches her older sisters. She wants to do her hair. She wants to do her makeup. She wants to dance. She wants to sing. She does everything an 8.5-year-old does.
This is the Offaly Down Syndrome Diaries with Robbie Dunley.
What are some of the most rewarding aspects of raising a child with Down syndrome?
Honestly, the unconditional love. Chloe, like all my kids love me, and I know that. But she just, I know her love is just unconditional. The hugs she gives, and I mean that sincerely, and the kisses that she gives me, and she just loves curling up with me, and like I'm her best friend. And even when they be in school, they ask her, oh, am I your friend? She goes, no, mommy's my friend. And I know that's genuine because she's in her head like, no, mommy's her best friend. And I love that. Like, that's huge for any parent to have that, I don't know, that bond, I suppose. And I have a really strong bond with all my girls. I have 4 girls. That's one of the most rewarding things about Chloe, is her love for me and for her family.
And do you think she's made the family stronger because of that love that she embodies?
Absolutely. Not so much, say, the 6 of us, right? Because we have quite a strong bond, but it's all our like aunts and uncles, granny and granddads. Like, it just seems to have brought us all closer together, because we did have to lean on each other like in the early days, in the early months, when she was small and we didn't have a clue what was going on. So we had to lean and reach out and for support and emotional support. And they've been fantastic. And because of that, we're so thankful to have had that support. Because I don't think we would have been able to do half the therapy sessions, half the hospital appointments, if we didn't have family and friends who were going to be there to mind the other girl. We only had her 2 older sisters at the time when she was very little. But to have someone to know, and knowing that they would take care of them and look after them, and also knowing that we have that support for when James and I want to go away for a night or 2 nights, knowing that she will be cared for and looked after and treated as we would treat her at home, as I said, as a normal one of the cousins, not be let away with murder, but also that they understand that she needs her quiet time and she needs to have her own little space, and once she's happy doing that, she's happy and she's content, and they understand that. So that has been phenomenal. It's been huge.
Okay. What advice would you give to other parents who are raising a child with Down syndrome?
Don't overthink it, would be my main advice. Like I said, we researched everything there was about Down syndrome, and it's terrifying, the stories. But it mightn't necessarily mean that that's what's going to happen to your child, that's going to impact your life in that way. Because everybody has their own journey at the end of the day. Every person in Offaly Down syndrome has led a different journey. Similar, but different. So I would just say, don't overthink it. Take each day as it comes. That's all you can do. Lean on family and friends. Don't take it all on yourself, because it will emotionally drain you. But if you have family who can help you or friends who can help you, lean on them, because people want to help and they want to give their support, and they also feel by doing that they're taking the stress off you. It's helping them take the stress off them, if that makes sense, because they can see that you're hurting and that you need it. And just treat your child as you would one of your other children, or if it's your first child, as you always wanted to raise your child. You know, give them the same boundaries, have the same hopes and dreams. Don't just think because your child has Down syndrome that you can't have the same hopes and dreams, because you can. They might change a little bit, you know, in terms of, I can't see Chloe being an avid traveller on her own, you know, going around the world as a big, say, top-notch business person traveling around the world on her own. She could still be someone who loves traveling. She just might need somebody who goes with her, you know?
On that, how do you envisage Chloe's future?
Happy. I actually envisage Chloe having a very happy future. She is surrounded by very close family and friends. We have a group of my sisters. We live very close to each other, and as such, the group of cousins that I keep relating to, they're nearly like brothers and sisters. So she's a huge family structure and network there, who I know are going to be there to follow her on when I'm not here, God forbid. But if I wasn't here, if James wasn't here, I know she's going to be looked after and supported. So I can see her actually having a very, very happy future. They know her inside and out. They know what she's trying to say. They know when she's sad. They know when she's upset. They know what she wants, when I don't even know what she wants half the time. So I know she's going to have a very, very happy future. And I'm actually kind of looking forward to seeing what she's going to be as an adult. You always kind of think, oh, I wonder what they'll be when they grow up, or, you know, and I can actually see her being like the boss of the house, if that makes sense. But not just our house. When I say the house, I mean of our family. She's going to be the head of the family, and I know she is just going to be worshipped, which is fantastic. It's a lovely feeling, actually.
What do you think Chloe's hopes and dreams are?
To eat lots of popcorn. Right now, honestly, to eat lots of popcorn and have ample supply of oranges, and just to be able to chill out and with her sisters and her cousins and play the games that she loves to play. That's really, honestly, and she'll sing when she wants to sing, dance when she wants to dance, and have everybody knowing that the others will join in as well. Like, they won't just go, okay, sit down. You know, that doesn't happen here. Like, oh, yay, it's a disco, you know. That's actually Chloe's hopes and dreams at the moment. Like, she's only 8. Like, if I was to ask her what she wants from Santi, she'll just go a doll. But she gets a doll every year from Santi. You know, she's just a very content little girl. So I can see her being that way when she gets older.
And that brings us to the end of today's episode of the Offaly Down Syndrome Diaries. Thank you to Anne Crombie for sharing her insight into what it's like raising a child with Down syndrome. Thank you to Chloe for giving Anne so many great stories to tell. And thank you to you for tuning in. We hope you've enjoyed listening and gained some valuable insights from our conversation. Remember, the stories shared here are just a small part of a much larger, beautiful tapestry of experiences from the Down syndrome community. Until next time, let's continue to celebrate diversity, spread awareness, and support one another on this journey. Take care, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Offaly Down Syndrome Diaries.